To mount the hardware onto your split decision snowboard, follow these simple steps. Make sure the aluminum hooks are engaged completely. Mark the board where you want the center of each foot to be placed. Place a rubber gasket in each of the 4 mounting blocks. Obtain the disc with 2 inline slots. You'll use either the mark labeled A or the mark labeled B to set your stance. Use the mark labeled A for angles 37 degrees or greater. Use the mark labeled B for angles 36 degrees or less. For this example, the front foot will be placed at 25 degrees in the goofy foot position. Obtain the disc that has 2 slots that are parallel to each other. Use either the mark labeled A or the mark labeled B. As before, this disc is being put at 25 degrees in the goofy foot position. Now place those 2 mounting blocks in the mounting template. Using your mark and the hole in the template, align the template so that the insert holes line up with the slots in the disc. Start screwing in 2 of the 6mm mounting bolts, but do not tighten them. The disc will need to slide back and forth. Make sure you line up the insert holes with the slots in the disc. Note that the slots are offset from the center of the disc. If you cannot get the insert holes to line up with the slots, you will have to reverse the disc. As before, start screwing in 2 of the mounting bolts and lightly tighten them. Also lightly tighten the bolts in the other mounting block. Remove the template. Slide one of the slider tracks onto the blocks. Check to make sure the pin fits through the hole. Repeat this procedure for the rear foot. Now you're ready to tighten all of the mounting bolts on both the front and rear mounting blocks. The slider tracks are compatible with strap-type bindings or almost any 4-hole pattern bindings. To attach your bindings to the slider track, follow these guidelines. Place the 4-hole disc at 0 degrees in the binding. Determine where you want to place the binding on the slider track. It'll help to mark the holes to be used on the slider track. Place the 6mm T-nuts on the underside of the track in those marked holes. It'll help to use tape to keep them in place. Place one of the rubber gaskets on the slider track and place the binding on top of the gasket. Now start the mounting bolts and tighten them. Some mounting bolts will protrude through the T-nut too far. This will cause them to catch on the mounting blocks when you slide the track in. If this happens, simply purchase additional washers and place them on top of your binding washers to solve the problem. Note the different lengths. This bolt has an extra washer and this one does not. Attach the pin to the binding by feeding the loop through a hole in the binding and then feeding the pin through the loop. The pin should be attached to the left side of the left binding and the right side of the right binding. Now the bindings are ready for use. If you opt for a Voile plate binding, there are a few modifications to the guideline. Assemble the heel bail so that the top of the bail is parallel to the heel block. Assemble the toe wire onto the toe block. For smaller boot sizes, you should reverse the toe block. Place both heel and toe blocks onto the slider track. Insert the boot and engage the toe lever. Note that the heel and toe blocks are not yet screwed into place. Center the boot over the slider track and make sure the toe block does not hang over the front of the slider track. If this happens, simply slide the assembly backwards. This will ensure free range of motion in tour mode. Mark the location of the wire bales on the slider track. Remove the boot. Align the holes in the toe and heel blocks with the holes in the slider track and start mounting the blocks using the bolts and T-nuts provided. It may be necessary to perform micro adjustments by moving the blocks closer to each other. Once again, insert the boot in the binding and check for proper binding fit. If you're satisfied with the fit, you can insert the caps onto the toe and heel blocks. And now your bindings are ready for use. The teleplate binding is designed for use with telemark boots and comes with a different toe and heel bale. To mount the teleplate bindings, follow the same guidelines, but note that the boot will have a heel lever, not a toe lever, as with the mountain plate.